for me, because that was back in the day before the internet is what it is.
Yeah.
So honestly, I didn't know how to even get involved in wrestling because at that time on the West Coast, especially in California, wrestling wasn't really something that like if you wanted to get into it, you knew that you go to wrestling school, you do your shows, like whatever. Like I had no idea. So I appreciate that my time in the business started when it did because I know how hard it used to be to get in the business instead of just sending out a link to your YouTube saying, "Hey, check out my matches, book
Right.
me." It was like, finding out how to go to a good school, training, putting a tape together or having someone put a tape together for
Yeah.
you, mailing it out. So, yeah, I come from that era of wrestling.
That's interesting then. How did you get into your first school? What was the school? Who was your trainer? How did that process take place then?
Well, after high school, I went to college just for a little bit, but I always knew I wanted to be in WWF at the time.
Oh,
So, what I would do is when I would go on auditions or I'd be on acting or modeling gigs, I'd always blab about how much I wanted to be this wrestler, which was pretty not common for any like actress to be saying back then. And the way I looked at it was, eventually the right person will hear me out and point me in the right direction. So this casting director, Sandy Alisi, she put me in an independent film about wrestling and they used local wrestlers. So during downtime, I'd be like, hey, like, I know I'm supposed to be in WWF one day. How do I do that? And then that's when they were like, you go to wrestling school. Here's our school. It's a school in San Bernardino called School of Hard Knocks. And they use like all of their guys. And so I just, any chance I got during that shoot, I just would ask them so many questions. And then it was really cool because I think because of my look, the owner, he invited me to come to the school and I never paid for training because he always felt like he was like investing. And so that worked out great because as soon as I got into doing training and everything, I really put my acting and modeling on the back burner because I was like, that'll always be there, but I got to do this wrestling thing now. So that's when I went and got a real job. And then I was wrestling on, going to training and then eventually wrestling on the weekends. And so it really was helpful that I didn't have to pay for my training.
yeah, that's awesome. So to back up, and we don't usually do childhood stuff, but did you knew then even as a kid, or was this a high school thing? Like when did you know you wanted to be a wrestler?
When I used to watch Cyndi Lauper in the 80s being
Oh, with
wrestling.
the rock and wrestling or whatever it was when they.
Yeah, like I just loved Cyndi Lauper and it opened my eyes to this whole like I didn't understand at the time, but eventually I understood that I love the theatrics of wrestling, that it was like being in a theater, like live theater, but you're using your body. And like, I just was so mesmerized by it.
Yeah.
And when Cyndi Lauper was involved, it just like, I don't know. I was like, dude, I know this is what, and I know this sounds so dumb and people used to give me a hard time back in the day, but I would always say, no, that's just what I'm supposed to do. And
Yeah.
people didn't, they were like, you're crazy, especially back in the day. So I was into it. And then I fell out of watching for a little while because, you get older, boys distract you. And then when I got into high school and the Attitude Era took over, that's when I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And everyone thought I was like cocky and like whatever, because I would always talk about it. They thought I was delusional. They called me crazy, a wrestler. Okay. I'm like, no, that's what I'm supposed to do. So
Hey, Rip Boy says you gotta be a little crazy. You gotta have a card missing, as he says, to get into the wrestling business anyway. So yeah, that's what it takes, man. Like
All the rest, everybody that's a wrestler, we're all missing a card.
I agree.